what's really worrying is that they're now making these decisions based on ChatGPT. The way that governments work out whether or not something should be funded is they put it into ChatGPT and say, does this contain an element of EDI? Why are you ever allowing a chatbot to make those decisions in the first place?
It's insanity.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Slow Takes. I'm Sam Illingworth from Slow AI and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hello, my name is Lior from Exploring ChatGPT.
The purpose of this live for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes is for us to chat about what's happened in the news and for us to keep it free of hyperbole. We've got a few questions and we've got some opinions on that backed up by evidence, but there's other people on this call who are also experts. So feel free to chip in the chat as we get to it. So first topic this week, Leo, and again, Leo and I probably have quite similar political opinions, but we try to be relatively apolitical with this. It's try to be apolitical. If I don't do that, call me out again. So the first news story was really something that took me by surprise this week. So this is the fact that Doge is using ChatGPT to cancel humanities grants. Now, let me go into this a little bit more. So Doge, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, which people may or may not have opinions on, was set up by Elon Musk with the current presidency in the United States of America. The purpose of being to cut down on expenditure, to remove what they would consider to be extraneous expenses, and in many instances to cut back on EDI or DEI, so equality, diversity, and inclusion programs that for reasons beknown only to themselves, they considered to be not necessary. Now, we can just take as fact that is wrong. And obviously it's important to have EDI programs that are meaningfully integrated across all elements of government. But one of the things that probably got the most vitriol from Doge was that they came in and they cancelled a load of humanities grants and arts grants in academia and in research based on the fact if they ever had a component of EDI. So I'm massively simplifying here, but imagine that somebody was putting forward together a proposal that looked at Holocaust survivors. If in that process, they also mentioned that we needed to have fair representation across different diversity, then their argument would be that it shouldn't be funded. So you can feel how you want to feel about that. Obviously, it's insane and completely immorally repugnant. But what's really worrying is that they're now making these decisions based on ChatGPT. So basically what this news story is, it's a pretty amazing piece of research. So I think it was, the PRN Newswire. What they found out by doing a Freedom of Information request is that the way that governments work out whether or not something should be funded is they put it into ChatGPT and say, does this contain an element of EDI? Yes or no? And then they allow ChatGPT, which was their Gen AI tool of choice, to make that decision. So you can have your own opinions so basically there's two things here. One, there's the issue that EDI stuff is just being blanket refused, which I think we can all agree on is silly. And secondly, which is the topic that we need to really get into, is the fact that government agencies are making huge decisions based entirely on the output of a chatbot, which we know to be technically incompetent in instances and also biased against many people that are not white men. Yeah, Leo, I'd love to hear what your take is on this, basically, and if I've misrepresented that story in any way.
Yeah, before I do, just a question for you actually about this. Was AI actually the sole decision maker in this process? Are they plugging this into ChatGPT and then just running with it? Or are they like plugging it in, taking it out, and then there's other people that are making final decisions?
No, they're just plugging it in and running with it, like from what the coverage. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to try not to curse. Yeah, that's nuts. This is the government we're talking about here. Wow. I will say, before I get into my opinion on it, I will get a little personal because actually the Holocaust example hits home for me because actually half my family was affected by that. So basically, Yeah, wow. I'm just so taken back by that. Human judgment needs to come first. It should always come first. We shouldn't be making judgments based off of what a chatbot gives us. I think it's a pretty simple standard to set for humanity. I'm just blown away by the fact that there was there's no human at the end of that decision to say, "Hey, no, maybe we shouldn't defund." There was a few examples. There was something with Native Americans. There was the Holocaust. And there's a third example. I don't have it pulled up right in front of me because I have my notes pulled up, but that's insane, Sam.
Yeah, I think, and lots of people similar to you, Jen, saying like how important it is to have the human in the loop, says Becky Howard and Diamantino as well. And I think that's what it comes down to, like having the human in the loop. And a lot of AI governance is whack, right? It's not particularly good. And some of the best AI governance that I've seen, though, is at some university institutes, which have quite a broad scope. But the number one thing in that governance is AI should not be involved in decision making. So you can use Claude Code or you can use ChatGPT to maybe frame some of your thinking or pull together your notes into feedback that's congruent and polite and that frames it well. But the minute you outsource your actual judgment and decision making to a tool that we know to be biased is insane. And I just think it's setting a very dangerous precedent, not just in funding, not just in government organizations, but in corporations as well. And the thing that I guess annoys me is that it's often the people at the top who get paid a lot of money that are then using the AI tools as effectively laziness for doing their job. And the reason why you should get paid such money in those top positions is because you have that element of judgment and discernment, and the buck stops with you. So I guess that's what really infuriates me about this as well. And Diamantino's just put that this is a way to avoid accountability. Since the moment we rise and put them all in trial, they'll excuse it was a tool that made this up. That is an excellent point that you can totally see already people saying it wasn't me that made that decision to like defund Holocaust survivors. It was a chatbot. And that's the problem because why are you ever allowing a chatbot to make those decisions in the first place?
It's insanity. I don't have much to say on that other than it's complete insanity. I'm so taken back by it.
No, I think this was, and again, I don't think this was hugely covered in the news. There's lots of stuff going on in the news at the moment, not just with global events, but with AI events as well. And when I was doing doing my running my news aggregator, I was like, why have I not come across this before? This is crazy. And this was like really great work by lots of people in PR and Newswire and like finding out this information. And I think basically, as it stands, there was a motion for a summary judgment filed in the US District Court for the Southern District of New York on March the 6th. So this all came out basically because people were subpoenaed on like Fridays. This is breaking news, but no one's talking about it. And for me, it just sets a very worrying precedent going forward. And as Des Kennedy puts, it's a complete lack of leadership. So again, you can have your thoughts about Doge. You can have your thoughts about the extent to which EDI grants should or should not be cut, but it doesn't really matter. It's the fact that they are using the chatbot to make these decisions without really any human oversight or insight that is greatly worrying. So yeah, quite quite a bleak news story to start with there. So the second one, and this again came out yesterday. I think this is a much more positive story. Okay, so this is in the UK and it's to do with the House of Lords. Really quick explainer, and I'll probably get some of this wrong, but in the US, you've got the House, you've got the Senate, and you've got the House of Representatives, right? In the UK, we have the House of Commons and have the House of Lords. So the House of Commons is like our members of parliament who are elected into their positions. Basically, every region has a member of parliament that's elected to represent them, and the party that has the most number of members of parliament makes up the ruling party, which at the moment in the UK is the Labour. We have a secondary house, which is called the House of Lords. Now, traditionally, this is like hereditary peers. So barons and lords going back and baronesses dating back hundreds of years who were there basically not on meritocracy, but on the fact that they were born into a lineage. Hereditary peers have stopped now. And even though some people have issues with the House of Lords, actually, it's now mainly a meritocracy, and people are voted into it, yes, on party lines, but also on their expertise. So you have people from across the whole spectrum of business, industry, academia. And whilst the members of parliament in the Houses of Common, one of the issues that we have is that a lot of them are career politicians who've never worked outside of politics. The House of Lords actually has people who've spent their whole life doing really amazing work. So in the House of Lords, what they can do is they can pass back legislature to the House of Commons up to 3 times. It used to be they had to sign off on everything. That doesn't happen anymore. But basically, the House of Lords exists as this really quite useful buffer to stop legislation getting passed that shouldn't be passed. And they also do some like really interesting work as well, because like I say, they've got these expertise away from politics. It's a bit of a long wind up, but basically what they did was they commissioned a report last week that looked at the impact that AI is going to be having on the creative industries. And what they said, which is a really interesting point, is the UK government is like trying to accelerate with AI around copyright and basically say, look, don't worry about copyright with artists. The AI industry is worth so much money that it's all going to be fine in the end. And the House of Lords commissioned this report, which basically is so smart. What it does is it says that you should not be riding roughshod over the creative license of creators, and they make the argument fiscally and financially. And what they basically say is that at the moment, the AI industry is worth about 12 billion in the UK, whereas the creative industry is worth 124 billion pounds. And similarly, even though the AI sector is currently about 80,000 jobs, the creative industry sector is 2.4 million jobs. Renee, that is the article indeed. And I'll link to all the articles in the upcoming post that goes out to accompany these. So yeah, basically this news story is making the argument that we shouldn't ride roughshod over artists' rights, not only because it's ethically insane, but also because the creative industry is worth more as things stand now in terms of jobs creation and economic benefit, rather than what AI stands at now and what AI might hypothetically be. So I thought this was like a really quite good news story that makes a case for why it's so important to get the copyright infringement around AI tools correct, and why we should always be platforming the work of creators. So there's a big wind up to that story, Leo.
Oh yeah, it's a good description. I will say before I give my opinion, I'm a numbers guy, so I think when numbers start coming into play, I'm like, all right, let's add this all up here. And I dove into this topic a little bit deeper, and there was a little bit of a discrepancy actually, which I didn't understand why. But so the actual number that I found, and this is according to gov.uk source for the AI industry in the UK, is supposedly valued at somewhere between 23 to 53 billion. Whereas in this legislation that they're trying to put forth, you noted it at 12 billion or something like that. So why the discrepancy? Why are they actually making it seem like the AI market is half or even a fourth of what it might actually be?
Great question. I
And
can come back to that. So I think,
yeah,
again, I agree there is a discrepancy in the numbers. The House of Lords report is money that's like actually been realized. Like this is what it's worth now. Whereas the YouGov poll and work that you're referring to as well, I think a lot of that is projected. So it's like this is indirectly what the industry may be worth. So I would personally go off the House of Lords report as being the more correct one. And again, it's a really great example of how people can completely frame numbers to make the argument they want to make, right?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when you break it down by those numbers and the amount of jobs, so it works out that according to the House of Lords numbers, so UK creative industries would be about 50,000 per job, and for AI, it'd be about 140,000 per job. But yeah, it was just odd to me that I guess when I found that source, maybe you're saying this is a future projection, but seems to be a big discrepancy there. And also, it'd probably be like you're showing the AI industry to be lesser than what it might actually be. That might also be an issue. But yeah, like back to the topic, should AI be allowed to train on copyrighted work without consent or payment? that's a whole can of worms. It's a tough question. Maybe there should be some legal framework there, or at least to be more like if you're going to be training AI models on copyrighted, whether it's information, whether it's artists or whoever it might be, they should probably be more upfront about that. So that's pretty much all I got on it. I think that at the end of the day, the numbers really came to my head first because I'm like, why, if AI is actually this, why are they saying it's that? No, I didn't look into the UK.gov numbers so too closely. Like you said, it might be a future projection, but it's pretty odd to me because if it's actually 23 to 53 billion, then it'd be a little bit closer maybe in this
No, it's a
topic. So
slightly different argument. I agree. And you make a good point in terms of the copyright in Wi-Fi is talking in the chat as well about, do you pay royalties to people as well? There are models for this. I would say something like I forget the acronym, but the model that basically pays people for if you play like someone's song in like your bar or in a theatre production or something, that money goes to the artist. Like same with ALS, which is like for authors in the UK, if people like photocopy your work or if they use it, there's a really good model for that. I would say not the Spotify model, which has its own issues, but I think a lot of artists as well would just be really grateful for, not just, but would really appreciate the transparency in where these models have used that work for inspiration. And again, what's insane about what the UK government's proposing is it's going to be like an opt-out scheme. And there's quite a lot of like pretty heavy hitters that have come in and said, this isn't right. Like Elton John. Elton John called everyone a bunch of losers, which I thought was just a very Elton John thing to say. But I think it's really thinking about how these tools use it. And I use AI for artistic work, but I'm always really careful with acknowledging that I've used it in that way. But I'll be honest, how do I know whose work it has and it hasn't borrowed in that process? So I think there needs to be greater transparency and there needs to be greater clarity around it. But what I loved about this report is they use these numbers to basically say, look, the creative, certainly in the UK, the creative industries isn't just like a nice thing to have. It's something that is actually driving our economy. So we shouldn't run roughshod over it at all. Thank you, Jen, for saying very nice things. Yeah, Karen makes the point that, hi, Karen Brash says, previously copyrighted models seem more obvious, but how would we identify who gets to claim new original work with so much AI and duplicative work? Exactly, Karen. I don't know is the answer. And there's lots of class action lawsuits that are going in at the moment as well. People will be aware if you've written a book before, um, basically your book has probably been used to train multiple AI models. How do we claim that back? And again, we can see the legislator that's come out of a lot of these court cases in that the AI tools, or rather the proprietary systems and the organizations, they don't really care about it. Like even if they get fined 100 million, £1 billion, in the grand scheme of things, that's really nothing to them. So yeah, I think it's a really difficult conversation and one that we'll keep returning back to. I'm a poet, I'm a creative as well, and it's something I think about a lot. But what I really loved about this report was just the fact that they were using numbers to make the argument that creatives are more than just a nice thing to have around. They're a huge driver of the economy as well.
absolutely. I would just add, I think that like in terms of maybe a legal framework and maybe trading disclosures,
Mm,
maybe, but at the same time, that's also that goes into regulation and also competition. Because if these companies release trading disclosures, then other AI corporations can see those things directly. And
exactly. And it's really hard for a creative because, so for example, if you're doing like a lot of some websites and stuff will give you the option of whether or not you want it to be findable by AI models. So on the positive side of thing, it's great. My work's not going to be assimilated as part of this training set. But on the negative side of things, it means that it's not going to be taken into account of generative engine optimization, the equivalent of search engine optimization, but for AI agents. So the fact that if you ask a ChatGPT today, who is the greatest proponent of pedagogic excellence in the UK? Like I would love ChatGPT to tell you it's Professor Sam Illingworth, and it would be able to do that because it's searched for how great I am. It's obviously not the case. But if I opted out of that scheme, then I'm never going to appear in that search. It's a really difficult conversation, but I think it's one that needs to, at least the creatives and everyone involved need to be able to have all of that information at their fingertips so that they can make the informed decision going forward.
It's a real tough one. It's a real tough one, Sam, because there's such a big gray area with this too. There's fair use, and then there's XYZ. It's kind of like on YouTube if you go and you watch a video and someone's to a song or to a video, and now they can make money off of that because they're reacting to it. They're not just using whatever it might be. So it's tricky. It's real tricky.
No, exactly. And as Karen says as well, the numbers tell an important story. And like, I always think like, always follow the money, always follow the numbers, because it definitely does tell a really important story in that. Okay. So third news story this time, we're revisiting old ground, but it's really important. So it's OpenAI's Pentagon deal. Last week, we led with the news story that Anthropic has been blacklisted by the Pentagon and by all, as a result, US government officials and companies, organizations can't now use Anthropic, i.e. Claude. The reason being that Anthropic decided that there was two red lines that they would not cross, one being the mass surveillance of US citizens and two being the deployment of autonomous weapons. So they lost their contract. OpenAI came in and said, we'll pick up that contract, and then inserted a clause that they also said they wouldn't be used for mass deployment of autonomous weapons and surveillance of US citizens. But a lot of reports have basically come in and just called this weasel words. And Sam Altman himself has admitted he cannot control how the Pentagon uses AI once deployed. So basically, one company said, Anthropic said, these are the red lines in the sand. We're not going to cross them. They lost the contract. OpenAI came in and took the contract and said, there are red lines as well, but maybe someone else could cross them and we don't know. I think that's my read on the situation. Leo, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that and like how it's evolved since we brought it up last week as well.
Sure, the story is definitely evolving every day, and it will continue to do. I think the main point is actions speak louder than words, so we'll find out. It's like with anything, whether it's a politician or a corporation. Judge them based on their actions, not what they say they're going to be doing. And also, contracts are just contracts, especially when it comes down to the US government. There's so much going on behind the scenes that we'll never know about. So there's that too. There's the story will evolve, but there's also parts of the story that will evolve behind the scenes that we won't know. So yeah, obviously once deployed, the US government can use it however they want. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think anybody would argue with that. And then I will say, and I mentioned this before in a recent live stream with Chris from TalkSec. So I think that like blacklisting a company is a bad idea. For the interests of the United States of America, all companies should be included, in my opinion. That would put us at the forefront of AI. At the end of the day, we want to win the race, right? And actually, Chris brought up a really good point, which there's actually a program called Project Genesis, where multiple AI corporations, US-based AI corporations, are actually using some of their best talent to work together in this government project called Project Genesis, which actually shows, yeah, we need all the best people from all of the best US AI corporations to work together to put the US at the forefront of AI. So that just shows one thing goes against the other. Blacklisting Anthropic is just not a good idea, regardless of whether they sign the dotted line or not.
For sure, man. It's just bad. Like, it's bad idea of like how you get like market development as well. And the other thing I would say, I'm a Claude Code user. I use Anthropic, but it's really important that everybody goes into how they use these tools with their eyes open. I'm not going to tell you which tool you should use. You need to find out like which tool aligns with your own ideology or which tool you can not even square the output. Because I'll be honest, Anthropic have done some pretty sketchy stuff. Like they've partnered with Palantir. They've been involved in like insurrections, like from a US point of view, that doesn't really stand well with me. Like I'm a British, so I'm not really patriotic. Most of my life is spent apologizing for the sins of my forefathers, of which there are many. But having done all of the various research into the different companies, like the one that I feel most comfortable with is Anthropic. The other thing that's really interesting is that like Claude crashed twice last week because of server demand, because so many people were leaving OpenAI to come like into Claude, right? So I was doing back of the envelope calculations, Leo, thinking they lost like $100 billion they lost a $12 billion contract, right, with the Pentagon. But how many people do they need to sign up to a Pro Max version in order to get that contract back? And are they probably close to doing it? Yes. So in many ways, they might have lost that contract and some of the opportunities that come with that, but they've bought themselves a lot of goodwill, whether that's earned or not. Um, so Karen, thank you, Karen, for hearing about Project Genesis. And if there's any temperature check on if they're including governance guardrails, I'm going to go with no, almost certainly not. But I would follow Toxic, Chris on SEC, for
Yeah.
like minute info on this. So Muriel, what makes Claude better than Perplexity and Comet Browser? Oh, again, I don't think there's an AI to rule them all. I think it's just working out which AI tool works best for you and your needs, and then which also squares with your ideologies as well. I'm all here for Claude Code, Anthropic. Like, it works for me. It doesn't work for other people in the same way. So it's just about having that experiment, finding out what works for you, and then going that way.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think we spoke about this in our last live stream. I don't think it's a good idea to be too reliant on one AI model. You should be experimenting, and different AI models are good for different things as well. So yeah, keep your horizons broad.
Cool. So our fourth news story, like, I'm going to get a little bit academic if I can. So basically, there was like a recent conference at NEUR IPS, which is basically one of the biggest machine learning AI conferences in the world. And they just basically gave out their best paper award. So basically the best piece of research that was presented at the conference. This is like quite a big deal. And it went to this paper at the University of Washington, which basically tested 70 or more AI models across 26,000 open-ended questions, and it discovered a hive mind. So what this basically means is, if you were to ask 26,000 individuals across the world the answer to a question, you'd probably get quite different responses. What they found here was that they asked 26,000 runs this question, 70 different models, and they didn't really get that different a response. So breaking it down very basically, what they're saying is, if you were to ask Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and any of these large language models a question, the similarity in the response is extremely narrow. And what this points to is a kind of hive mind that exists across these large language models that doesn't really occur with human thinking. And this has all kinds of implications. Like, I'll just give one, then I'll pass over to Leo. But one of these basically being that if humanity has all this collective thought, which is great, what happens if we're then defaulting to the mean of these very narrow thought streams and this hive mind that occurs within large language models? Are we actually stopping the diversity of thought that occurs within the human consciousness? So for me, this paper is groundbreaking and, like, understandably won the best paper award at this major AI conference. But again, because it's quite academic, people might not be aware of this or what this even means. So yeah, I would love to hear your takes on that, Leo.
Yeah. Before I do, could I ask you a quick question about this specifically?
Of course.
Because obviously, again, there's numbers here, right? So could you break down how the users are actually asking these questions to the 70 different models? How many users are actually asking these questions? Because in my opinion, AI is a very individual experience.
No, it's a good question. So my understanding is that they've simulated the users to be asking these questions across like a variety of different demographics and ideologies. But interestingly, you get into the meta question of actually to what extent are the ways that these people being simulated actually not that diverse and not heterogeneous as well. So that's a very good question.
Huh. Okay. So yeah, by the way, are you hearing a delay in my voice? Because I just
No,
started hearing
it's so good.
Okay. I think this actually relates to model distillation as well, which basically means when you have sometimes a smaller model, doesn't have to be a smaller model, basically learning from a larger model. And it's a fact of life at this point that actually these models are learning from each other. whether it's malicious or intentional. So to see that similarity across 70 different models is actually not super surprising. But again, keep in mind, AI can be biased based on your own individual experience. It gets to know you. So it's actually, if we did this anecdotally instead of simulating the users, and if you actually took, let's say, 100,000 AI users from a different spectrum of ideologies and belief systems and did the same project, I'd be interested to see how that would turn out. Because I think that if I asked a question to, let's say, ChatGPT, and Sam asked that same question, and this is one of the beautiful things about these conversations, me and Sam don't necessarily agree on everything, but we can still have a conversation and be respectful, even though maybe our ideologies don't line up on every single thing. So, what do you think, Sam?
No, I think that's a great point. And like, I need to dig into the actual methodology of how they did the paper, because you're right. If you got 20,000 actual people to do it versus 20,000 simulations, I think they'd be quite different. As Des asked the question, like, is this an open source paper? Yeah, it's like a preprint, like it's a conference paper. So it's, as far as I'm aware, it's not gone through like rigorous peer review yet, but it should be open access. So I'll link to it in the follow-up as well. There's another really like quite well-known Nature paper that came out last year that makes a similar argument to the hive mind that I'll also try to link to. And as Karen says, this is basically the Borg, right? We are assimilated into this idea. So even though it might be that our own individual experiences are that we have quite different encounters with the AI tools that we use, I honestly think there is a real danger that the narrowness of thought is just going to keep contracting and contracting, and not least because of actual languages that we're using. So I can see what Arturo's on the chat, who is a professor in psychology and cognitive behaviors, and a language expert as well. But like, one of the issues I have is that AI tools default to English being the lingua franca, the used language. And a quote I always come back to is the Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, who says, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." And he meant it very much in terms of, if you don't speak other languages, then like, how can you possibly expand your cultural horizons into their lived experiences as well? And that's a real danger. Like, for anyone who speaks multiple languages, they'll know that English is incredibly constipated. Like, it's why British people are so repressed. We can't actually say what we want to say half the time because the language doesn't enable us to do it. If you compare that to like Farsi or Japanese, like, which are these beautiful, vast languages, then it's why these people are far less repressed than British people. So I think we just need to be really careful that, even though I agree, Lior, all of us different experiences, and that hive mind might be a little extreme. Like, the dangers of everything defaulting down to English is a real problem, and something that we need to do more of to take into account.
Sure.
Cool. So fifth paper, again, this is like a really dark one. Apologies. And this is a United Nations study that basically has been looking at trade union monitoring how AI is actually causing fatal accidents in gig work. So again, breaking it down into maybe more simplistic takes than is necessary. But imagine you're like a DoorDash or a delivery driver. You are now beholden in many instances by an AI algorithm that doesn't actually understand how things work. It might tell you that you have 7 minutes to make your next delivery, which is 400 meters away, without realizing that 400 meters involves you having to traverse 8 blocks because of road closures, because of every other thing that's going on as well. So there's that. These algorithms don't really understand human nature or any of the multiple variables that exist outside of its very strict confines. So we're going to see this more and more with the gig economy and in our workplace as well, that basically, if AI algorithms are responsible for setting targets, be that a DoorDash delivery person, be that somebody in a corporate boardroom, to what extent is it actually able to take into account the variables that make us human? So yeah, I thought this was a really, again, worrying news story, and would love to hear your take on it, Lior.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous. Like, in general, algorithmic management. We're humans, we're not machines. It actually relates pretty well to the Burger King story that we did last time as well. This just shouldn't be happening. It's like, it's literally a Black Mirror episode
So the
every
Burger
day.
King story we talked about last week is where basically now a lot of people in Burger Kings across the US are wearing headsets that are AI monitored to see how happy they are. I also, since we last talked, do you know what it's called, that AI monitoring set? It's called Patty. So I guess like a play on like a name and also like a burger bun. it's, it's terrible.
Yeah, this is one of those things that, in my opinion, we shouldn't even get to the point where we have to regulate it. It just shouldn't be. We're humans. We're not machines. Everybody has a bad day. There's so many factors in everybody's life at any point in time as the seconds are passing, as the minutes are passing. It's just wrong. We shouldn't be monitoring people with AI. It's, again,
No,
flip it.
exactly. And as Caroline Bobby puts there, like there's less repression in entrenched UK culture and more domination of normative brains. And Caroline, like Jen Banford, who's also on the call, who's amazing, like talks really eloquently about this, that a lot of AI tools are massively biased towards neurotypical people because data sets are biased towards neurotypical people because our society is biased towards, and I say this as a neurotypical person. This is a really important topic that isn't being discussed enough, that AI tools are biased against neurodivergent people. And as well as different languages, as well as different cultures, as well as different genders, races, this is a very important topic that needs to be discussed and that we need to ensure that people from the neurodivergent communities have a seat at the table in understanding like how we take these large language models forward. So thank you very much for bringing that up, Caroline. It's something that's like weighing really heavily on my mind at the moment as well. Just some great points here as well. Hillary's saying that humans are increasingly being monitored and driven by systems designed for machines. Lots of workplace efficiency measures came from manufacturing environments and they just don't work for people. This is so true. I've got a post coming out later everybody's plugging my work naturally for me, but I've got a post coming out later this week that basically looks at this exact thing of a lot of people, like a lot of companies are making cuts in the workplace based on what they think AI can do without actually understanding what humans can do in that invisible work that an AI will never, ever be able to replace. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Leo, is there anything else you wanted to cover that we haven't had a chance to chat through before we just go on to like the final segment, which is recommending some Substackers that we'd like to further highlight?
Sure. I'll just mention quickly. It seems like from the first topic to the last, especially the first and the fifth, this is slow takes, right? I feel like this episode should be called like "This is not happening." This should not be happening. We shouldn't be getting to this point. It's getting scary. Why? We're humans, right? Let's remain human. That's all. That's all I have to say about that.
No, I think let's remain human is probably quite a good message for all of us to have going forward. And again, it comes back to the Borg. And we're not trying to, I think both of us are quite centered in our use of AI. Like we don't necessarily think that Skynet's a thing, or we don't think that AI is going to cure all of the world's ills. But there are some really serious issues that need to be discussed with a level of discernment and judgment and criticality, which is what we hope we bring in here. So yeah, just Leo and I are big proponents of like community building. And so at the end of each of these takes, we try to just plug some additional Substackers that people should check out. So the two that I would like to plug today are actually two Substackers that are they basically platform the work of other people. And they are She Writes AI and Code Like a Girl, run by International Women's Day. Every single day, we should be grateful and celebrate the amazing women in our lives and all of the various obstacles that are placed in their path that men just don't have to overcome. We shouldn't just be celebrating women on the 8th of March every year. We should be doing it every day. But the work that She Writes AI and Code Like a Girl do is amazing. Please follow and subscribe to these people because they platform unique women and non-binary writers from across the world and are just really stand-up accounts who have great writers in there. So I'd really encourage you to follow and subscribe to them. Leo?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, yeah, happy late Women's Day. I will say I have a wife and a 2-year-old girl. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to live with women. I'm Sam as well, but we should really learn to appreciate them. And also, my wife's pregnant. She's going to be giving birth on April 18th. And I'm like, how do you do this? This is crazy. I couldn't do it. So thank God for our women. Um, Before I say who my Substacker is, I will selfishly and shamelessly plug the YouTube channel. That's the YouTube channel where I also post these streams and clips, and it would help both Sam and I if you guys went over there to that YouTube link, subscribed. We already have a couple streams up there as well. So that's the YouTube channel. And for my Substacker, I have Andrea Chiarelli, who is another Substacker I do weekly live streams with. He's really brought me into the world of AI and business, and he's in consulting. And there is his Substack, Andrea Chiarelli. I will just copy paste his name as well here. Yeah, taking a different perspective into the world of AI in terms of the business world, and very intelligent guy as well. That's it.
Well, thanks, Leo. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Like again, like amazing. Got so many numbers here. So until the end of March, when all of the clocks line up again to some extent, we'll be having these at 12 p.m. or midday UK time, GMT, and we'll be having it at 8, which qualifies as 8 a.m. Eastern time. I'll put out a post, a wraparound with all of the links and stuff later on. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, for like great dialogue in the chat. Like we really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks Leora as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you.
Thanks everyone. Stay safe, be well, and go slow.
Bye now.